Hey guys, good morning. Happy Thursday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and early. Actually, it's not too bright and early. It's 7 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. If any of you have seen my community page already, you'll be aware that I had a small accident yesterday, so I wasn't ready to make a video this morning. I've got some interesting stuff to talk about. I'll fill you in. I had to get staples in my leg to close a wound I got while mountain biking. 2 or 3 hours after the injury, it was still pouring, spurting blood, and I guess I hit an artery. All right. I want to talk, I'll update you guys on that. Then I want to show you guys an example of why addiction is really a disease. And I'll give you guys a really good example of how, even though I haven't used in 14 years, the addiction is still there. And I'll talk a little bit about the massage parlor shooter. All right, let me start first with the injury yesterday. I put new tires on my mountain bike and I went out for a nice slow ride just to test the tires out. And I was riding on the sidewalk and the garbage cans had been put out. I went to go around the garbage can, caught the garbage can, caught myself. I didn't even hit the ground, but my calf slammed into the pedal. Hurt like a mother, right? I swore and everything. Got back on the bike, went about another 2 miles pedaling, and I noticed a wet feeling. I looked down and there's a stream of blood coming out of my sock, going down my shoe. This is like 10, 15 minutes after, and it looked like the blood had just started. I think I bumped it again when I stopped at a stoplight. I think I bumped the bump a second time, and it split open. So I pulled the sock down, and there is just blood, a stream of blood shooting out of my calf. All right, so I quickly pull the sock back up. I'm 3 miles from home, no cell phone. I make it back home without passing out. Put my leg up, put ice on it. 2 or 3 hours later, it's still, the minute I take the bandage off, it's streaming blood still. It wouldn't stop bleeding. So I went to the hospital. Long story short, I got a couple staples put in the leg, and I'm happy to announce I took no pills, no nothing for this. Not even any Novocaine. Let me tell you, man, staples in your calf, it feels just like it sounds like. Let me tell you that. I complained like a little girl. All right, now let me talk about addiction, right? Because I haven't used at all, nothing, not a sip of beer, not a pill, nothing in 14 years. But that disease is still with me. I've transferred it now to working out and exercise. I do this for hours every day, along with painting and everything else. And even after my hip replacement this morning, I was already talking to myself. At first, I was like, well, I could start. The smart thing to do would be to let the huge egg on my leg go down. Here, let me show you guys. To let that go down and take the day off. But there's a constant battle going on in my head right now, trying to talk myself, and it's throbbing right now when I'm standing up. And I'm scared about it. If it swells up too much right now, too early, it'll pull the staples right out and start pouring blood again. My shoes were squishy with blood. That's how much it was bleeding. And this addiction that I now have with exercising, it feels so similar to everything what I used to feel in the mornings back when I used to go get my drugs first thing in the morning. I would try to convince myself not to do it, but then there was the other side of me constantly making up reasons and excuses of why it'll be okay. The instant gratification of just getting what I need right now and forget the consequences. And that's exactly what's going on in my mind right now. You know, I am constantly, every couple minutes, telling myself I could go for a 1 mile walk. I could go for a 2 mile bike ride. Come on. I'll just be real careful. It's amazing. I'm not kidding. I mean, this is a constant mental battle. I feel anxiety because I can't do what I always do every morning. And as I sit here this morning, I realize that disease of addiction is very real. It's still right here, right with me, just as strong as it's ever been. It's now exercise that I've transferred it to, which is much better, of course. But it's times like this, it's a little wake up that I'm not all cured. You know, that if I was to ever use anything again, it would be a very fast, quick ride right down to rock bottom again, or worse. So like I said, you guys, I've told you guys this before. You know, whenever anything bad happens, try to take away something good from it, something to learn from it. So, and this is an example. Okay, now moving on to the massage parlor. I don't feel comfortable with the way the policeman presented this, the way he said it. Did he actually say, I believe he actually said that this guy was having a bad day? The shooter was having a bad day? Did he really say that? I think he did. Now it turns up the officer there that held that press conference in Atlanta, Georgia, well, he's got some very questionable websites dealing with the virus and China and stuff like that. He's got some very questionable posts, ones that I strongly disagree with, where they talking about coronavirus. I won't get into it. I tell you what, I'll post pictures of the police officer that held that conference. I'll show the posts that people found on the internet. So it would seem that he has a bit of an bias against Asian people himself, the officer that had the press conference. Now, it seems like the officers believed this real quick. They were really quick to go along with the story this guy gave about having a sex addiction. And that's why he just got frustrated, supposedly, and went and did all these things. 8 people gone. And supposedly, and the police sound like, they're good with that. That's a good reason. I'm not buying it. And I'll tell you guys exactly why. Okay. One of the very first things, he's claiming addiction, just like I have. Same kind of addiction, there's sex addiction, drug addiction, exercise addiction. And he's claiming the same exact thing, and it feels the same way. The very first step into recovery, the very, very first step is admitting you have a problem, realizing that your life is now unmanageable because of the way you're acting. That's literally this first step in the 12 steps. Okay, and that's it. That's one of the most important. Instead of constantly saying, "Well, I can stop anytime I want," and it's not affecting me, and the millions of other excuses that addicts give. But see, here's the thing: once you reach, that's the first step towards recovery. Now you're admitting that your life has become unmanageable, that it needs to be fixed. You're in the process of moving towards recovery, right? So the last thing, now your mind is you realize that I would have never thought of going down into the city and doing what he did to, like, say, my dealers. Because at that point, it's the very first semblance of rationality, what they call a moment of clarity, that you're realizing that you're screwing up. Your life is unmanageable. But when you're in that, the thought of doing something like this what he did, that's going to it will ruin your life without a doubt. So you've already made a step towards recovery. So to go back and to do something like this, it doesn't really make sense. This guy admitting that he had a problem and claiming that this was his way, being frustrated and his way to solve it, doesn't quite make sense. Because admitting you have a problem, it's admitting that you want to make your life better, that your life has become unmanageable. For him to go back, the thing, once you've reached that step, the thing that's in your head is to stay as far away from that as possible, not to go back and do what he did to these massage parlors. You guys see what I'm saying? What he did was very self-destructive, extremely self-destructive, more self-destructive than his original addiction. And that's the part that's kind of doesn't make sense. Because once you start moving towards recovery, you realize you're trying to fix your life at that point. You're trying to stop. You realize that you have a problem. So to go back and do something like that, will ruin your life. It's a complete, and it could happen. He could get so frustrated. I remember wanting to end my entire existence because every day I wanted to stop and I couldn't. So in one way, I could kind of understand the frustration, but it's different in that just doing away with myself is one thing, because then I'm not going to suffer I'm not going back and going to suffer the consequences. I'm going to be gone. But what he did was that's going to haunt him for all of his years on this earth. It's going to irrevocably ruin his life. And he already admitted that he had a problem and he wants to make his life better. You see the juxtaposition of what he's saying and what he was actually trying to do doesn't click. Doesn't make sense. Just my thoughts. I don't know what the penalties are for hate crimes in Georgia, but I have a feeling that he might get them far lesser. Maybe he's a very smart guy, and he knew that by claiming this addiction thing, that he would be looked on much. He'd be looked on much easier by a judge than if he just claimed pure hatred or whatever. Just some thoughts. I'm not in his head. I don't know. But as soon as I heard that, it didn't make sense, because admitting that you have a problem means you want to make your life better, and yet what he did ruined his life forever. So it's possible, but unlikely, in my opinion. All right, my leg is throbbing. I got to get off it. You guys have a good Thursday.